Hello friends, Antarctica is the only continent which isn't a country, doesn't have a government, nor any indigenous tribals living there for ages. One of the most obvious reasons is that it is the coldest continent in the world. The temperature can go as low as -89 degrees Celsius. Additionally, it is also the windiest place on Earth. With snowstorms at a speed of 300 kilometers per hour, it can blind you. Antarctica is also the world's driest continent, to the extent that you might be surprised to know that it is considered a desert. There's only around 51 millimeters of rain here, and even when it rains, it turns into snow before reaching the ground. So in a way, Antarctica is the only place on Earth with little to no influence of humans. But it doesn't mean that countries all across the world haven't tried to take over Antarctica. It was around 350 BC, the Greek philosopher Aristotle was among the first people to say that the Earth was spherical. At the time, the Greeks were aware of the Arctic regions in the north. They had named it the Arctos, the opposite of Arctos. And from here, the name Antarctic was derived. Humans stepped on Antarctica for the first time during the 1890s.
But hundreds of years before that, Antarctica had started appearing on world map in the year 1530. About 200 years later, in 1773, British naval officer James Cook became the first person to go to the south of the Antarctic Circle. But going much closer to Antarctica was so dangerous, that he had famously said, he was so sure that no one could reach Antarctica, because the place was so perilous with strong winds blowing and the ship at danger of hitting icebergs at any moment. But his words were proven wrong 50 years later. It is quite controversial as to who was the first person to step on Antarctica, because several people claim to have been the first person.
British-American Captain John Davis believed that he was the first person to do so, because his ship was lost and he reached Antarctica. The first undisputed landing was in 1895, when a Norwegian ship called the Antarctic reached its shores. 6 to 7 members of the crew of this ship got into a small boat and went on to the land. These two people from the same boat got into an argument about who was the first to get off and the first to step on Antarctica. There's a funny drawing of it too, as you can see on the screen. Alexander is sneaking out of the boat so that he could be the first man to step on Antarctica, and the rest of the people in the boat are looking at him in surprise, because they too wanted to be the first. After this, the first 20 years of the 1900s are known as the heroic years of Antarctica. Because many expeditions were conducted during this time, there were new scientific discoveries, and we found out many new things about Antarctica. It was the first time we found out that there are plants growing on this continent. Mosses were found growing in Antarctica. After this heroic era, came the Colonial Period of Antarctica, when several countries tried to lay claim on Antarctica. Between 1908 and 1942, 7 countries claimed sovereignty over this continent: Argentina, Australia, Chile, France, New Zealand, Norway and the United Kingdom. After the end of World War II, these countries started expressing their claims more strongly. These countries set up permanent research centers in Antarctica to show that they have a permanent station in the area, and since researchers were living there permanently, they claimed the land theirs. In 1950, the Soviet Union government issued a memorandum to the rest of the world, saying that if a country claimed Antarctica's territory without the Soviet Union's permission, or if it made decisions regarding Antarctica with the Soviets' participation, the Soviets would not recognize any such claims. In 1958, American President Eisenhower issued notice to the rest of the governments, calling for a treaty to ensure that Antarctica would always be a free and peaceful place. In Washington on the 15th of October 1959, a conference was held on it. On the 1st of December 1959, the Antarctic Treaty was signed. There were 3 major points in this treaty. First, Antarctica would be used for peaceful purposes only. Second, everyone would be free to carry out scientific investigation. And third, the results of the scientific observations would be freely exchanged and available to all. Initially, this treaty was signed by 12 governments, including all countries which were claiming territory on Antarctica. But the most interesting thing about this treaty is that the claims of these countries weren't abolished. This treaty merely suspended those claims temporarily. So legally, even now, these countries can continue to claim those territories, and they are doing so indeed. This political map of Antarctica is still valid. This is why these 7 countries have held onto their claims over Antarctica. This treaty is set to expire in 2048. Post that, whether this treaty would be renewed or not, will have to be seen. But thankfully, with the help of the treaty, in the present there has been little to no geopolitics in Antarctica, and more scientific research. This has benefited scientists hugely. The International Council of Scientific Unions established a special committee to conduct research on the Antarctic, under which scientists from different countries are coordinating together. This is why every year, about 4,500 scientists go to Antarctica to work. And a strong collaboration between scientists from different countries has been seen. Friends, it is interesting to know about India's role in this story. Actually, in the beginning, India was completely against this Antarctic treaty, because India believed that this Antarctic treaty will be used by these 10 to 12 countries to capture Antarctica. Even though the countries agree that the land will be used for peaceful uses only, but it was possible that these countries may choose to carry out mining. If oil is found there, these countries would mine for oil and make profits out of it. India had appealed to the United Nations, that the United Nations should take over the control of the entire continent. But the UN didn't do this. Later, in 1991, an environmental protection treaty was signed in Antarctica, also known as the Madrid Protocol, because it was signed in Madrid, the capital of Spain. In this treaty, finally, restrictions were put on drilling and mining activities in Antarctica. No country can do drilling and mining in Antarctica. So that Antarctica is protected, it was very important to do so. Because many countries are scavengers when it comes to oil. Under the guise of exploration of oil, a large number of places have been destroyed. In a study from 1992, the U.S. Geological Survey experts found 19 billion barrels of oil under Antarctica can be recovered. Mineral explorers in Russia claim that there are 500 billion barrels of oil and gas under Antarctica. But there are 2 reasons why till now oil mining hasn't been conducted in Antarctica. The Madrid Protocol is the first reason, the treaty that keeps us protected from such instances, and the other reason is that it will be quite expensive to do so. At least for now. But in the future, due to climate change, the threat may increase further. As this ice is melting due to climate change, it is becoming easier to access Antarctica. New technologies will be developed with time, and perhaps then it wouldn't be an expensive affair. And it becomes economically viable to extract oil and gas from there. As I told you, this treaty will expire in 2048.
If these countries do not renew this treaty, this can be possible after that. Several countries have taken to fishing in the oceans near Antarctica and exploiting it. Like China. China has recently expanded fishing and tourism there. Actually, after the year 2000, China is the only country which has set up research stations in Antarctica.
After 2003, there is a permanent physical presence of the Antarctic Treaty as well. The headquarters is in Buenos Aires, Argentina. If you look at this in the sense of geopolitics. Today, Antarctica is not a country, it is a political territory, where several countries have come together to collaborate, and divided power among them equally. But Antarctica doesn't have any police force, no army, and no legal system. The loopholes of this treaty can be seen being exploited even now. For tourism, tourists can go to the British station in Antarctica named the Port Lacroix, and can get their passports stamped there. Even in the territories of Chile and Argentina, tourists can get their passports stamped. It is another way through which these countries express their claims. What do you think, friends? What should be Antarctica's future? Should things continue as they are? Countries collaborating together, not allowed to do mining and drilling, and people can be allowed to go there for scientific research or tourism. Or should we explore Antarctica even more? Comment below to let me know. I hope you enjoyed the video. Let's meet in the next video. Thank you very much.